I never imagined a night out could shatter everything I thought I knew. My wife, Lily, had always been charismatic, beautiful, magnetic. But lately, there was a subtle shift, a tension in the air that I couldn't name. Work had been exhausting, and I often told myself I was just overthinking. Yet when she mentioned a gala at one of the city's most exclusive venues, I decided to join her, partly to reconnect, partly to soothe my growing unease. The evening began innocuously. Lily looked stunning in a deep emerald dress that hugged her figure perfectly. I could feel the eyes of the room lingering on her, but I brushed it off as pride mixed with the familiarity of envy. Yet beneath her laughter and graceful movements, there was a sparkle in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't just excitement, it was something else, something I couldn't immediately identify. As the night progressed, I noticed her drift away from our usual circle. She began conversing with a tall, impeccably dressed man, a stranger whose presence commanded attention. He laughed with ease, his charm unmistakable, and I saw Lily respond in ways she never did with me. A subtle tilt of the head, a light touch on his arm, the kind of coquettish smile that I thought belonged exclusively to me. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I tried to dismiss it. After all, she had always been friendly, and I had no concrete reason to suspect betrayal. But something about their interaction lingered in the back of my mind. Every laugh, every glance she gave him seemed to pull her further away from the person I thought I knew. By the time dinner was served, the tension had escalated. I watched as Lily excused herself to the balcony, and curiosity, or perhaps a premonition, forced me to follow. I caught snippets of their conversation, her laughter ringing through the night, her words playful and intimate, the tone unmistakably personal. My heart sank with every word I didn't understand, every nuance of affection that wasn't meant for me. When we returned to the ballroom, I tried to maintain composure. I engaged in small talk, smiled at colleagues, but my mind was elsewhere. I noticed how she occasionally touched the man's shoulder, leaned in slightly closer than polite conversation required. By now, it was impossible to ignore the realization forming in my mind. This wasn't casual flirting. Something deeper, something secretive, had been unfolding long before tonight. The music shifted to a slower, more seductive rhythm. Couples began to dance. I watched helplessly as Lily allowed the stranger to lead her to the dance floor. My chest tightened. I had always been an observant man, methodical, calculated. Yet nothing could have prepared me for the sight of my wife in his arms, moving with a familiarity and sensuality that made my stomach churn. Every step they took, every turn, every subtle brush of hands spoke of intimacy I had never shared with her. My mind raced. How long had this been happening? How many nights, how many secret meetings had gone unnoticed? The pain was sharp, almost physical, as the realization settled. She had been unfaithful for months, perhaps years, and now here it was, undeniable and in plain sight. I wanted to storm the dance floor, to confront them, to demand answers, but I froze. A combination of shock, disbelief, and a strange sense of detachment rooting me to the spot. I needed clarity before acting, a careful understanding of the full picture. I had always been strategic, and tonight I would observe, gather evidence, and let the truth reveal itself fully.
As the song ended, the man pressed a light kiss to her hand. My vision blurred with anger and hurt. I realized then that my marriage was no longer what I believed it to be. This man wasn't just a casual acquaintance. He was a presence in her life that I had never known, a secret I had been blind to for far too long. I slipped away to a quiet corner, trying to compose myself. My mind replayed every unusual detail from the past months. The late nights at work, the sudden purchases, the little lies that had once seemed insignificant. Each one now formed a clear pattern. She had been preparing for this, maintaining appearances while nurturing a hidden connection. Determined to uncover the full extent of her betrayal, I resolved to act with precision. I started taking mental notes. Times she seemed evasive, messages she'd delete too quickly, the subtle changes in her demeanor. I needed more than suspicion. I needed undeniable proof. As the night wore on, the gala continued, and I noticed more signs. The stranger was lavishly generous, buying her drinks, whispering in ways that made her laugh with abandon. The connection was palpable, undeniable. I felt a cold fury, but also a strange clarity. This was not a one-time indiscretion. It was a prolonged affair, calculated and deliberate. I excused myself to the restroom, giving myself a moment to breathe. My hands trembled as I held the mirror, staring at my reflection. Rage, disbelief, heartbreak all coursed through me. But beneath it, a small spark of determination ignited. I would not crumble. I would confront this with evidence, with control, and ultimately, I would ensure that she faced the consequences of her choices. Returning to the ballroom, I watched from the sidelines as they continued to dance, their movements intimate, their laughter shared. I felt invisible yet painfully present, a silent witness to my own undoing. The night would not end without confrontation, but I knew that rash action could destroy any chance of understanding the truth fully. I found an opportunity when they stepped aside for a brief intermission. The man leaned in to kiss her cheek, and she responded with a warmth reserved for someone with whom she shared secrets. Secrets she had never shared with me. My mind raced. I had to gather proof. Photos, videos, records of their interaction, anything that could confirm the pattern, the premeditation, the betrayal. By the time the gala concluded, I had made my decision. I would follow her discreetly to uncover the full story. I would not confront blindly. I would act methodically, ensuring that every piece of evidence was irrefutable. The drive home was a blur, my mind a whirlwind of emotions and strategy. That night back at our house, I confronted the emptiness of our bedroom. The bed we had shared for years now felt foreign, a symbol of trust broken and intimacy replaced with deceit. I lay awake planning my next steps, knowing that the coming days would determine the course of our lives. Tomorrow, I would begin the careful process of uncovering the truth, documenting every interaction, ensuring that there would be no room for lies or denials. She had led a double life for months, possibly years, and it was time for her world to meet the reality of her choices. I closed my eyes, though sleep eluded me. The image of her dancing in his arms, the laughter, the intimacy burned in my mind. But beneath the hurt, a sense of control began to take shape. I would navigate this with precision, ensuring that when the truth came to light, it would be undeniable, and irreversible.
The night ended not with resolution, but with a quiet, simmering determination. I had seen her true self tonight, and the revelation, though painful, was the first step toward reclaiming my life. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the world seemed deceptively calm. Lily greeted me as usual, her smile bright, her movements elegant. I forced myself to respond, maintaining a neutral demeanor, concealing the storm raging within. The gala had left its mark. The vision of her in the stranger's arms replayed relentlessly in my mind. But I had a plan. Observation, evidence, precision. I started subtly, asking about her evening while keeping my tone casual. She spoke about the gala, about colleagues, about the music and ambiance. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Yet I noticed small tells. A lingering warmth in her voice when mentioning certain moments. A fleeting look of distraction, a subtle tension when I asked if she had spoken with anyone special. Every detail confirmed what I had feared. This was more than a flirtation. It was a carefully cultivated affair. Determined to gather proof, I discreetly checked our shared devices. No incriminating messages, no suspicious calls. My heart sank. She was careful, meticulous, but one thing remained: her schedule. She had begun leaving home at odd hours, claiming extra work or last-minute social obligations. I began documenting everything: photos of her arrivals and departures, time-stamped receipts, subtle surveillance of her interactions. Each piece of information was another thread in the tapestry of her betrayal. Days turned into a tense rhythm of observation. I noticed her texting more frequently, laughing at messages I couldn't see. Her calls were hushed, sometimes conducted in another room. The stranger from the gala, I discovered his name, Alexander Sterling, was a millionaire, a figure prominent in business circles. I realized immediately why he was irresistible: charisma, power, wealth, the perfect combination for seduction. Lily had not just been careless, she had strategically aligned herself with someone who could elevate her social standing while hiding the truth from me. One evening, after a week of careful monitoring, I saw an opportunity. Lily mentioned an industry cocktail event, an excuse to leave the house alone. I decided to follow her discreetly, keeping a distance, observing her every move. She arrived at a luxury penthouse, greeted warmly by Alexander. My stomach churned as I watched them move together effortlessly, the same intimacy I had seen on the dance floor. They passed the night together, or so it appeared, hidden behind the opulence of Alexander's world. Returning home, I sat in silence, processing what I had seen. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal, yet a strange sense of clarity. This was no spur-of-the-moment indiscretion. It had been cultivated, nurtured, and executed with precision. I realized I needed more than observation. I needed irrefutable evidence, something that could no longer be denied or rationalized. The next few days were a meticulous operation. I set up discreet cameras in the house, ensuring they were unnoticeable. I organized a private investigator to monitor Lily's outings, tracking her interactions with Alexander. My mind was a machine of strategy, every action calculated, every risk considered. I had learned from the past: confrontation without proof would only leave me vulnerable to lies, manipulations, and denials. Then one night, the breakthrough came. Through the PI's footage, I saw Lily and Alexander enter a private suite at a hotel, their behavior unmistakably intimate. The images confirmed what my instincts had already told me. She had been leading a double life for months. Anger and heartbreak surged, yet beneath them, a sense of empowerment took root. I finally had the leverage to reclaim control. The following day, I confronted Lily, choosing my moment carefully. She returned from a business lunch, radiant as always, oblivious to the storm I was preparing. I invited her to sit in the living room, maintaining calm, composed demeanor. "I know about Alexander," I said quietly, watching her face change. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I've seen the evidence, the penthouse, the hotel, the night you've lied about. This isn't just casual, Lily. This has been going on for months." She laughed nervously, attempting to dismiss my words, but I held up the files. Photos, footage, documented timestamps. Her eyes widened, the confident facade cracking. I can explain," she began, but I interrupted. "No, there's nothing to explain. The actions speak for themselves. You chose this double life, and now you face the consequences." The next steps were deliberate. I had learned from betrayal. Emotion alone could cloud judgment. Instead, I orchestrated a plan of accountability. She would not escape unscathed, but I would ensure it was measured, elegant, and inescapable. A lesson in karma and personal responsibility. First, I informed mutual acquaintances subtly. hinting at her indiscretions, ensuring social repercussions would follow without public humiliation. I contacted Alexander's associates, exposing his manipulation, allowing him to face consequences in his own circles. The truth, when revealed, would ripple, affecting both their worlds. Then came the final confrontation. I arranged a dinner under the guise of reconciliation. Lily, confident and unaware, arrived expecting charm and appeasement. Instead, I presented the culmination of my findings, evidence of deceit, her strategic moves, her hidden nights. I watched as her composure crumbled, as the reality of her actions hit her. "You thought you could play a double game," I said calmly, "but truth has a way of catching up. The life you've built on lies cannot survive the daylight." Her tears and pleas fell on deaf ears. I had no desire for physical retaliation, no need for public spectacle. The lesson was clear. Betrayal carries weight, and every action has consequences. She had chosen her path. Now she must navigate the repercussions. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was complete. Alexander faced professional consequences, social scrutiny, and isolation from his elite circles. Lily experienced the full impact of her betrayal, reputational damage, social estrangement, and the cold realization that her charm and manipulation could not shield her forever. As for me, the experience reshaped my perspective. I reclaimed control over my life, my emotions, and my future. The pain lingered, yet it was tempered by clarity, empowerment, and a hard-earned sense of justice. I learned that betrayal, though devastating, could be navigated with strategy, composure, and dignity. In the end, Lily's choices had sealed her fate. I emerged stronger, more vigilant, and with a renewed understanding of trust, loyalty, and self-respect. Life moved forward. The chapter of deception closed, and I embraced a future defined not by the betrayal of others, but by the resilience and wisdom born from surviving it.